Have you ever stopped to think that not all the fat we carry in the body acts in the same way? Well, there is a very big difference between that fat that we feel just below the skin, the one that forms the folds that bother you when wearing pants or a dress, and another fat that is deep inside, silent, hidden between your organs. And it is precisely this second that deserves all your attention. It is not just an aesthetic nuisance. No, she is the most dangerous of all. Yes, you read that right. This type of fat that settles in your belly, involving your liver, stomach, kidneys, and intestines, can bring serious problems to your health. And the scariest thing is that you don't have to be overweight or obese to have this problem. Thin people can also accumulate this deep fat and be exposed to the same risks. So pay close attention to what I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to teach you, based on solid scientific evidence, 5 steps for you to get rid of this dangerous abdominal fat once and for all. These are measures that you can start applying today, which will improve your mood, reduce inflammation in your body, and avoid all the bad consequences that this fat can bring you. Stay with me until the end, because this subject is very serious and directly affects your quality of life. Before we get into the steps, I want you to understand exactly what happens inside you. In your belly area, there are 2 types of fat. One of them is the subcutaneous one, which is just below your skin, the one that you can pinch with your fingers. It is the fat of the folds. The other type is visceral fat, which is deep down, very deep, surrounding your internal organs. This visceral fat is the real villain. She doesn't stand still quiet. On the contrary, it acts as if it were an endocrine organ. That is, it produces substances that directly interfere with your hormones. Experts call this metabolically active fat. What does this mean in practice? It means that this internal fat manufactures compounds that mess with the hormones that control your hunger, your mood, the functioning of your brain, and even cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. In addition, it increases inflammation throughout your body. And what is the result of this whole inflammatory process? A higher risk of developing insulin resistance, that condition that precedes diabetes. It also increases the risk of prediabetes and diabetes itself. But it doesn't stop there. This visceral fat is also linked to the accumulation of fat in the liver, a condition that doctors call hepatic steatosis. It also raises your blood pressure, favors heart disease, and even increases the chances of certain types of cancer. Think of something that messes with all the buttons in your body. The power of this fat that seems harmless is frightening. That's why I repeat, not all fat is the same. It all depends on the place where it is deposited. It is for this reason that health professionals differentiate the so-called apple obesity from pear obesity. In apple obesity, the fat is mainly concentrated in the belly, causing your waist to be wider than your hips and thighs. In pear obesity, fat accumulates in the legs and in the breech region, and this pattern does not have as much negative impact on health. Now answer me, do you fit the apple standard? Have you ever thought about why you have been accumulating this fat precisely in your belly? I'll list 4 main reasons for this to happen. The first reason is stress. When you live seriously and continuously stressed, cortisol levels rise a lot. This hormone triggers the release of insulin, which makes you feel hungrier and eat more. In addition, cortisol helps release a protein called myostatin, which breaks down muscle tissue. Result, you gain belly fat and lose muscle mass at the same time. It's a terrible combination. The second reason is the wrong diet. If you're consuming trans fats, know that they're the worst type of fat out there. They inflame the body and actively contribute to the growth of your waistline. Not only do they form new fat, but they also transfer fat from other areas of the body to your belly. That's why it's essential to read the labels of everything you buy. If it says hydrogenated fat, hydrogenated vegetable oil, or partially hydrogenated, leave the product in the supermarket. Don't bring it home at all. Where else do we find these bad fats? In cakes, pies, filled cookies, ice cream, microwave popcorn, nuggets, and in the famous fast food. You may think that you don't consume trans fats, but also pay attention to sugar. If you are overdoing it with sugar and drinking soft drinks and processed juices, know that this increases your belly. There is a famous case of an American who decided to drink soda at will for a whole month to see what happened. By the end of that period, his belly had increased impressively. The third reason is alcohol. A lot of people ask if beer really makes the belly bigger. The answer is yes. Excess calories, whether they come from alcohol or any other food, can increase belly fat. An average beer has more than 150 calories, and it doesn't take long for the belly to start forming. What's worse is that beer also hinders fat burning because your liver will prefer to burn the alcohol first, leaving the fat stored. The fourth reason is the lack of diversity of bacteria in your gut. Most of the bacteria that live in your digestive system are beneficial. They produce hormones, control your appetite, strengthen your immunity, extract nutrients from food, and even influence your mood. Scientists already consider the gut to be a second brain. Well, research has shown that the less varied your gut bacteria are, the more likely you are to have belly fat. Some specific bacteria can even get in the way even more. Now you must be wondering, how do I know if I have a lot of visceral fat? The most accurate method would be through imaging tests, such as magnetic resonance imaging or CT scans. But in day-to-day medical practice, this is almost never done. There is a much simpler, freer, and more effective way to assess your visceral fat. By measuring your waistline. I'm going to teach you how to do this measurement correctly. Stand up. Take a tape measure. Wrap it around your waist at the level of your belly button. To find the right spot, feel the sides of your torso and find the bottom of your ribs and the top of your hips. The measuring point is exactly in the middle of this path, just above the navel. The tape should be tight, but not too tight. Exhale normally and take the reading. Measure twice to be sure. The numbers considered normal? For women, the waist circumference should not exceed 88 centimeters. For men, the limit is 102 centimeters. It is important to know that these values may vary according to ethnicity. For example, for people of Chinese origin, abdominal obesity is already considered to be 80 centimeters for women and 85 centimeters for men. Why is this measure so important? Let me give you a piece of data that will make you reflect. A huge survey involving more than 650,000 participants was conducted by a team from a large American clinic. In this study, researchers compared men with a circumference above 110 centimeters with men who had less than 94 centimeters in waist. The result was shocking. Those with the largest belly had a 50% higher mortality. And for women, was it the same? No. The impact was even worse. Women with waists above 94 centimeters had an 80% higher risk of death than those with waists less than 70 centimeters. Also, according to this research, for every 5 centimeters more in the abdominal circumference, male mortality rose 7% and female mortality rose 9%. The good news is that the opposite is also true. If you manage to reduce your belly, your risk of death decreases by the same amount. So take your tape measure now and measure your waist. If you are above the recommended level, it is time to act as soon as possible. So let's go to the 5 steps to beat abdominal fat, all proven by science. The 5th step, which I consider the starting point, is to increase your metabolism. Contrary to what many people think, it won't be thousands of sit-ups a day that will eliminate deep fat from your belly. What really works are your daily habits, both what you eat and drink and what you expend energy throughout the day. There is no magic pill, I'm sorry to tell you. The good news is that when you start losing weight, visceral fat is the first to go away. It is broken down faster than other types of fat, and a faster metabolism helps in this process. How can you speed up your metabolism? Through 3 measures. The first is aerobic exercise, the second is weight training, the third is to increase protein consumption. These 3 strategies increase your lean muscle mass, and muscle tissue burns more fat efficiently. When choosing physical activity, look for those that work large muscle groups, such as those in the legs. It is good to give preference to higher intensity exercises. Walking is great, but it generates a lower energy expenditure than running or cycling. And here's a tip that changed the lives of many people. If you're short on time to exercise, focus on HIIT, which is high intensity interval training. Before you start, it's important that your doctor gives you the go-ahead because this type of workout requires intense effort. A scientific analysis published in 2018, which brought together 39 different studies, showed that HIIT significantly reduced total fat, abdominal fat, and visceral fat. The great advantage of this method is efficiency. You get the same results in half the time. For those who are always in a hurry, always running from one side to the other, this short modality helps to fit the exercise into the routine, and most importantly, to maintain constancy. Several studies have demonstrated HIIT's impressive ability to elevate your metabolism for hours after you finish your workout. Let me explain how HIIT works in practice. You intersperse short bursts of very intense exercise as fast as you can, with short periods of rest or low intensity. For example, 60 seconds of maximal effort followed by 2 minutes of light movement. You repeat this sequence several times until you complete 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes of HIIT are equivalent to 40 minutes of a moderate intensity walk or 40 minutes of swimming or cycling. You speed up the pace until you are out of breath, and when the program time ends, 30 seconds for example, you decrease the intensity to catch your breath and only then start the cycle again. There are several free apps that help organize HIIT, but pay attention to an important point. If you make your recovery phase too short, you won't be able to reach the ideal intensity in the next interval. Those who talk to you have been practicing HIIT for many years and recommend it. My personal sequence is 1 minute strong to 2 minutes weak, but each person needs to find their rhythm. And of course, to gain muscle mass, you need to lift weight. You can intersperse high-intensity workouts with weightlifting sessions. Research conducted by a famous university followed more than 10,000 men for 12 years and found that those who did 20 minutes of weight training combined with aerobic training gained less abdominal fat than those who only did treadmills. Regardless of which grade you choose, it's important to vary your routine. Why? Because your body becomes more and more efficient with the repetition of the same movements, and this efficiency makes you burn fewer calories. Therefore, vary the exercises. The third measure to increase your metabolism is to increase the amount of protein in your diet. Proteins make you burn more calories because of the so-called thermic effect. In addition, they reduce appetite and promote satiety as they decrease the levels of a hormone called ghrelin, the one that makes us hungry. The fourth step is to increase quality nutrition. As I just said, you should focus on protein to gain muscle mass, but it's also critical to increase your consumption of healthy fats. You may already know that person who lives in the gym, works out every day, but still has a little belly. The truth is that to lose fat, you depend on the calorie deficit. That is, eating less than you expend. Exercise alone may not bring the expected results if the diet is not correct. In reality, fat loss has a lot more to do with what you put on your plate than it does with your workout. Focus on fiber, which is in fruits and vegetables. Invest in healthy fats, such as avocados, extra virgin olive oil, nuts, walnuts, flaxseed, and chia. And don't forget about proteins, such as lean meats, eggs, and chicken. There is no point in focusing on a single food. To think that just eating avocado will solve the problem is a mistake. The ideal is a complete change in eating patterns. One of the most studied and recommended diets is the Mediterranean diet, which is associated with numerous health benefits and has already demonstrated a preventive effect against several problems, including obesity. The third step is to cut carbs, but pay attention. I'm not talking about carbohydrates that bring real nutrition, such as fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. These need to remain on your menu because they provide vitamins, minerals, fiber, boost your immunity, and make you stronger. The problem is empty calories, refined carbohydrates. Can you have a pasta or a loaf of French bread once in a while? It can, but in small quantities. Can you eat white rice? Yes, but little. And sugar? This one is best avoided. There are very clear studies showing that sweet drinks are the great villains of visceral fat. The easiest way to reduce sugar consumption and consequently reduce your belly is to cut out sugary drinks. Soft drinks, cut. Industrialized fruit juices, cut. Beer, cut back, or at least cut back drastically. I've seen cases of people who, just by stopping drinking beer, lost up to 4 kilos in a month without changing anything else in their diet. The second step is to lower your cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it greatly increases visceral fat. When you live stressed or sleep poorly, your body produces excess cortisol, and this hormone makes you accumulate fat precisely in the belly, especially the deepest, visceral. So, to reduce cortisol, you need 2 things. First, reduce stress. Second, sleep well. How to reduce stress? It's not easy, but it's possible. Physical exercise, even if it is a walk, helps to lower stress. Practicing meditation, doing deep breathing, trying to have more control over your routine, all of this also contributes. And sleeping well helps immensely. Inadequate sleep wreaks havoc on your metabolism. When you don't get enough rest, your body asks for more food to replenish energy, and at the same time decreases the burning of that energy. A good night's sleep is critical for your physical and mental health, for your overall well-being, improving immunity, brain function, and normalizing cortisol levels. Now we come to the first step, which is to make your gut work in your favor. How do you do that? By growing good bacteria. To have a wide variety of beneficial bacteria, you need a diet rich in fiber, adopt the Mediterranean diet, avoid unnecessary use of antibiotics as much as possible. All of this helps your gut flora become more diverse. Maybe you think about buying probiotics. Which one to choose? There is a bacterium that deserves special mention called Akkermansia mucinifera. If you research it, you will find that it reduces obesity. How does this happen? This bacterium benefits your metabolism, improves metabolic disorders associated with abdominal fat, and even increases your immunity. However, it is a difficult bacterium to cultivate because it is anaerobic, that is, it escapes oxygen. That's why you can't find probiotics with Akkermansia in the formula. Research has found that administering a mixture containing Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Bifidobacterium animalis increase the amount of Akkermansia in the gut. And does this combination help you lose weight? That's exactly what some studies have found. In a study of overweight or obese women, those who took a probiotic with strains of Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium lost significantly more belly fat than those who received a placebo. Another study of 135 people who had abdominal fat showed that those who took Bifidobacterium animalis every day for 3 months lost more belly fat compared to the placebo group. Another interesting bacterium is Lactobacillus gasseri, which also has promising effects on weight loss. So if you're going to buy probiotics, think about these combinations: Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Bifidobacterium animalis to try to increase Akkermansia, and Lactobacillus gasseri. But if you don't want to spend money on supplements, you can achieve the same effect by eating right. Lots of fiber, fruits, and vegetables. Now that you've learned the 5 steps to slimming your belly, I'm going to share 5 more valuable tips to help you shed those pounds that are lodged around your organs. The first tip is to set goals. Research published in a leading nutrition journal has shown that setting weight loss goals greatly increases your chances of achieving goals, even if those goals seem unrealistic to others. It is by aiming that you try, and sometimes you succeed in hitting the target. The second tip is not to let diet take over your life. Thinking about diet all the time doesn't help. A great writer has already observed that if you try to avoid thinking about a polar bear, the bear will come to your mind every minute. If you keep telling yourself, I'm not going to eat this, that, the desire will come back even stronger. You'll feel that craving, and it can backfire. An American psychologist proved this writer right through his theory of ironic processes. When we try not to think about something, one part of our mind avoids the forbidden thought, but another part keeps checking from time to make sure that the thought is not arising. Ironically, this ends up bringing the thought back. With food, it's even more complicated. So focus on your goal, but let life flow. Eat what you like from time to time, guilt-free. Then you resume the goals, and so you will lose belly fat faster. The third tip is to try to lose weight with the help of friends. According to a study published in the journal Specializing in Obesity, during a team weight loss competition, when you receive encouragement from a colleague, your chances of achieving a significant loss increase by 20%. Therefore, call some friends who also want to lose weight and join in a common goal. The fourth tip is to celebrate small victories. Set short goals. For example, I want to lose 3 pounds in a month, instead of wanting to lose 10 pounds in 4 months. And when you reach that small goal, celebrate. Research from an American university found that people who achieved their short-term goals and celebrated these smaller achievements were more successful at losing weight and were also able to maintain the weight lost in the long term. The fifth and final tip is to remember that abdominal fat loss is about health, not just appearance. You don't have to lose weight quickly to wear a bikini next summer. If you're working to improve, keep going, hold your head high, and be patient. Remember that reducing 5 centimeters from your waist reflects in more years that you will gain in your life. Track your progress by measuring your waist weekly and watch this measurement decrease over time. And when you get your results, share them with others. This serves as an incentive for those who are still struggling with their belly. I want to see you make it. Did you like these guidelines? Now all that's left is for you to put it into practice. The knowledge is already with you. Science has already shown the way. What will make the difference is your daily action. Measure your waist today, see where you are, and start applying the 5 steps. Boost your metabolism with aerobic exercise, weight training, and protein. Improve your nutrition with fiber, healthy fats, and a real diet. Cut back on refined carbs and sugary drinks. Manage stress and sleep well. Take care of your gut with probiotics or high-fiber foods. And don't forget the 5 tips. Set goals. Don't let diet dominate your life. Ask for help from friends. Celebrate small achievements. And remember that every centimeter less on your waist means more health and more life. The professional who is talking to you follows hundreds of cases and sees every day how these changes transform people's health. You are not alone in this journey. Share this knowledge with those you care about, because health is something worth sharing. Now it's up to you. Take the first step today. Measure your waistline, write down the number, and start changing. You will be amazed at the results. Until next time, and thank you very much for making it to the end.